Hey, what's up, guys? It's Will back once again for some more fight card predictions. We're here for UFC Denver. Namajunas against Tracy Cortez is our main event of a card that's taken a lot of hits, a lot of fights, cancellations, amongst other things. But I actually really like the card. I think it's a pretty decent fight night card with some of the matchups they've put together. And I think it's one of those cards when I was looking into it, it was like, I'm finding it hard to really be comfortable with some of the picks that I've got, and especially if you like having a bet and so on, it's hard to kind of really solidify some spots that you may like. So, like I said, I'm going to look into it the rest of the week going forward and see if I can find more of those spots. But yeah, overall, a pretty decent fight night card. And I'm looking forward to kind of talking through some of the things that I've been looking into a little bit. So let's jump onto this here. So starting off down in the welterweight, the middleweight division, we've got Josh Fremd against Andre Petroski. I'm not super high in either one of these guys, in all honesty. Josh Fremd, I got on him in the Cedric Dumas fight where he was a massive underdog. He was like plus 190, and I was like, why is this guy such an underdog to someone like Dumas, who I just don't think is that great of a fighter. Petroski, it's really hard to kind of trust him in some aspects because he kind of, I don't want to say he's a bit of a flake or whatever, but like he kind of got knocked out with that kind of invisible knee last time out. But he's got some things that you may like with his grappling, his kind of top position that he can have. He can kind of lay there for longer periods, where I think Fremd as well, he may kind of give up some positions and kind of get hurt in some places. And I think he's very subbable as well. I was just looking at this a little bit, and I was watching some interviews with Josh Fremd, and he says that he's like I say, he's coming off a loss here to Kopilov. That was a horrible knockout there. But he's had like back-to-back like car accidents, which was a little bit. I was like, what do you mean by that? And then he goes into like he was in 2 car accidents within the space of a short time. So that's a little bit of a thing to kind of maybe pop to the side a little bit. But he fights, I believe, out of Denver. He goes to the Elevation Fight Team. So him with the Elevation, that's another thing with Denver. You've kind of got to take that into consideration a little bit. Josh Fremd, like you see, he's based himself out there in Colorado and does his camps out there. And we know that Petroski is a bit of a known gasser. But I still think that even though he might gas, I still think he can, the athleticism that the guy has, and with his entries into his takedowns and with his overall grappling, I think he can even still get positions where he can get Josh Fremd to the ground and have opportunities for submissions and whatnot. So I'm actually thinking, and I was a little bit surprised because I was a little bit back and forth with this one, maybe leaning the Fremd side. For me, I like Petroski in this one. I think he can get a sub, if not late round 1, maybe into round 2. But it's a pick and fight for a reason. You can still get dog money on Petroski, but he may, if you get past that 7-8 minute mark of this fight, he may start to really dwindle, go downhill really quickly when this fight could become very close from that. So I expect Petroski early to come out, be a bit more commanding, and use his grappling and be heavy on top. And I'm going to go for my official pick as a early second round submission for Andre Petroski. Montel Jackson, Damon Blackshear, really good fight to throw together on 2 weeks' notice. I really like it. Obviously, this guy's been around the UFC for a very long time. Lots of things to like about him. Lots of things that I still think I want to see a little bit more from him. I hear that he's outside the cage shenanigans isn't great, and he's not really 100% fully committed to training. He's kind of living that street life a little bit. But he's a guy I think is bordering on that top 20 to top 15 mark in the UFC if he's not there already. And if he wins this one here, that will 5 wins in a row. Not that I'm taking some of these, like, think Jesse Schrader, not the greatest win. GP buys. Julio Arce is a good win. Rani Yaya, he beat the vet there. This guy, you'll hear everyone going on about it. He's got the biggest fists and this and that, and a lot of athleticism, a lot of length to his game. I think where, if you're looking at the Blackshear side, he will look to implement his grappling. I think if he was to go blow for blow on the feet here, I think he would be a little bit outmatched a little bit. And we've seen, if you look through various fights, stats, whatever it may be, Montel Jackson drops a lot of people. And I know that's, you look at the JP Buys fight, I think he must have dropped him like 4 times, hurt him really badly. But he can drop a lot of people, and he's did that with a lot of people in the UFC. When you look at his losses in the UFC, Ricky Simone and Brett Jones, they grappled him heavy, where I think that Blackshear can do that, but I don't think he's going to be as successful as what, especially that Ricky Simone back in time. Now that relentlessness seems to have kind of left Ricky Simone altogether. And Brett Jones was really, that's all he had in that fight, because he had nothing on the feet for Montel Jackson. And he really put him against the cage there and really put his weight on him and didn't really let him get into that fight and won a pretty horrible decision. But it was a decision he deserved to win. I was initially going to go on the Blackshear side, but the more I've kind of went into it a little bit, and it might change as the week goes on, but as an official pick on here on the channel, I'm going to roll with Montel Jackson to just do a little bit more. I think this is going to be a close decision. Honestly, I think either guy could take a scorecard here, could be a split if Montel can't get his striking off, if Damone can't get those takedowns when we get some top down. I think he might just be a little bit of disadvantage on the feet. So for me, I'm going to roll with Montel Jackson to win that one there. Luana Santos against Mariya Agapova. Everything I've seen of Mariya Agapova recently, she's like, her life has completely went sideways. Like, she says that she's been, I think, harassed by men. There's allegations flying out there. She's been kicked out of gyms. I don't even know what gym she's really kind of training out of. I don't know if it's MMA Masters, which I think was the last one. I remember seeing there was American Top Team before that at one point. So there's been a lot of things kind of going on outside the cage, which I think will affect her inside the cage. For me, I think Luana Santos is the clear favourite here. Now, the betting line is like minus 400. I don't really like that in women's MMA, honestly, and especially someone who's still fairly new to the UFC. She said, this is fight number 3, win over Egger, and a knockout of Julian Miller there, which is not something to write home about. But the fights you had in LFA coming through, I think were fairly decent. And Jenna Bishop is not the worst fight in the world to take your first L against either. So I think that Luana really has to be careful early on, because we know Agapova comes out really, really quick and hard, and she can throw a kind of high caliber of strikes, a high output of strikes, I should say, and really put it on you and kind of go from there. But I think as this fight goes on, if she comes out gung-ho like she does, I think she's going to gas bad. I think she's going to be there for takedowns. I think entries and openings for those takedowns will be rather easy. And, 3 of the 7 wins that Santos has are via submission. We've not really seen much of that in the UFC as of yet. I think it might show itself here. I think this might be the last time we see Mariya Agapova in the UFC. We can maybe see her floating around some of these regional shows very, very soon. I don't know how old she is, 26, 27? 27. So, I just don't think she's for a UFC level in 2024, honestly. So for me, I'm going to go Luana Santos, and I'm also going to go via submission in that one as well. This is a really fun fight for me. Jasmine Jasudavicius against Fatima Kline. Now, there's been a lot of talk. I've been getting a lot of DMs about this fight, about a certain person, for the simple reason that start of the year, I put this is one of the people that the UFC should sign in Fatima Kline. She is one that I've earmarked for a couple of years, going back into the Invicta days, a 2-weight world champion in CWFC. But in saying that, I don't think her caliber opposition is up to much. I think her last win against Romero is a decent win to have. And I'm just going to come out and say what I've said to a few people. I think she's a future UFC champion, in my opinion. She's 23, 24 years old. Skill for skill, I think she is very talented. But I'm a little bit... I'm just not sure about this matchup on a short notice capacity. I think if this was a full camp, her getting ready, I think skill for skill, she is the better overall fighter than Jasmine Jasudavicius. I'm a little bit concerned about there's not a hell of a lot between them in height wise, but I think there's a little bit more mass to Jasmine. I'm a little bit worried just in case she can get the fight to the ground, maybe be heavy on top, maybe against the cage, get Fatima Kline locked up there a little bit and kind of just make it a bit of a boring cage grab kind of fight. So, but like I say, I've already put out there, I think Fatima Kline, honestly, I think she will be a UFC champion one day. I'm that confident in what I see in her. I've did that a few times when it's came through. I did it with Stipe Miocic going back in the day. I did it with Cody Garbrandt. I just really like what I see from this girl. But short notice in Denver now. I think she's fought in Denver before and went 3 hard rounds. So that's something to kind of write home about as well. So, but it's the 1 week short notice. For me personally, I think she should have went to the Contender Series where she was scheduled to fight in September and had that slow build. And then a couple of years when she's 26, 27, maybe heading into her prime, she is ready to go for that belt. But now she's facing a girl who I think is close to a top 15 position in the UFC, a big jump in caliber opposition from what she's faced, a bigger girl because she's faced 5'1" girls, 5 foot girls. But there's a lot to like from her. I like her striking. I like her entries into takedowns. She uses her striking to get into takedowns. She can cage push a little bit. She can get takedowns off the cage. She can be dominant with a ground and pound. I have seen her taken down a little bit by, I think it was Sydney Trill, I think it was, back in Invicta. But for me, I really like Fatima Kline as a prospect. I'm just a little bit... I'm not sure with this matchup, and she's a favourite as well. She opened plus 210. If you got in around that plus 210, that's the side to be on, in my opinion. I would have made that bet with you, but we literally only got odds in this yesterday. It says minus 130. I think she's minus 125 over here in the UK. I'm seeing a lot of love for Jasmine, Jasudavicius, and I don't mind it, honestly. But for me, if I'm out here saying that this girl can go and do this in a UFC future, I'm going to believe in her talents. I'm going to believe in her skill set, and I think she's going to do enough to win this fight. But I think that Jasmine isn't the worst bet this week. I think she's been getting ready for Viviane Araujo. The short noticeness of this fight, her moving up into this weight class, which I think she's more, for me, she's more a better fighter move at 115. I think that's where predominantly she will head down there. I'm going to stick to believing in Fatima Kline. Even if she loses this one, I don't think it's the worst L to take. Get yourself in the UFC, build on that. I think they will do that. So I'm going to take Fatima Kline to win this one via decision, but I think it could be a very, very close run affair in this one as well. And I really like her as a prospect. I have done for a couple of years now. I think she's a good fighter, but big step up against a tough girl. So I'm going to stick with Kline now. Where are we? Another fight. I love a couple of weeks' notice as well. Flyweight division, Joshua Van, 10-1 against the 15-6. Charles Energy Johnson. If you guys have been around for some of the fights that I've wrote down of Josh Van, he was another guy kind of like Fatima Kline. I make lists of these guys that I like coming into the UFC. This is another one I think has major potential within the flyweight division, and he's really showed that in his UFC kind of debut, a couple of fights in the UFC. I mean, coming in against something now, Zhalgas, he has close fights, but he is very beatable. And he came in there against that was a big step up from kind of what he faced beforehand on the regionals there, even though I think he beat Paris Moran, who's a really good fighter out in the regionals there. But he's followed that up. Kevin Borjas, I think it's a good win to have in your record right now. And then he got the knockout of Felipe Bunez, which was a little bit back and forth a little bit. But there's so much to like with this kid. I really like watching him fight. And I think that the more he progresses going forward, I think he's going to be a real dominant guy at 125. I will come out and say that I wasn't a fan of the matchup with Tagia. I think it was very smart not to take that fight because Tagia missed weight. I had money on Tagia. I thought it was a bad style matchup right now for him. But this, I think, is a better style matchup. But he's against a confident Charles Johnson, who's turned some of those close L's into W's recently. With a win over, he kind of broke the hype of Azat Maxim. And then he beat Jake Hadley last time out in his hometown. And he's jumping back in here, 9 weeks 8-9 weeks after his last fight. So really interesting fight, in my opinion. I don't think there's going to be much of a takedown threat from either. Josh might start off a little slow, where I think that he will come into it later on in the fight. I think Charles will not really have to worry about a kind of takedown threat in this fight, and which might open up his kind of overall arsenal. But for me, just when I watch Josh Van, if this is going to be a back and forth striking fest, I like his output. I like his striking. His striking is just brilliant. His footwork's brilliant, and he just doesn't stop coming forward. But Charles Johnson's much of the same as well. I don't know what the reach disparity is with these two, 5 inches. So that could play a bit of a difference in this one here. But I'm going to ride Josh Van. I still think that what's kind of interesting is I think fight to fight he's going to make massive gains in his overall skill set. But this is the fight that's been through together 2 weeks' notice, and that might favour someone like Charles Johnson, who he fights very regular. How many fights has he had this year? He had nearly 3 fights, so pretty much within that span. But the overall talent I see with Josh Van, I like him in this fight. I'm going to pick him, but I'm seeing a lot of love out there for Charles Johnson, and I see that. It might be another proving point for Josh Van against a guy who's very confident of coming off a couple of wins, and this could play out to be a close flyweight encounter. I'm going to stick with Josh Van in this one, and I really hope he wins, because I think he's a really supreme talent within a division. Cody Brundage against Abdul Razak Alhassan. That's another interesting one. I've heard kind of people have been messaging me about this one because they know I've been a fan of Alhassan for years and bet him in many spots, lost in some spots. Both guys fighting out of Denver here, I believe, so they're used to the kind of elevation side of things. But there is things here that Alhassan is going to look to come out and knock that chin off Brundage very early. I think Brundage is going to look to grapple, but I don't know whether I can't side with Cody Brundage. Some of his kind of wins recently, you see that there was obviously that one there he was well on his way to losing. Then that Zach Reese one where Zach Reese to me is not a high caliber fighter, and then he took that L to Bo Nickel. Nothing to kind of be ashamed of there, because Bo Nickel is a high caliber kind of prospect coming through. Where we've kind of got the wins and losses of Razak Alhassan here, lost to Malkoun, knockout of Desherico in the first however many seconds of that one. Was that nearly 3 years ago? That's wild. Joaquin Buckley, that's a close split where he went a hard 3 and really pushed Buckley, which was decent in that one. Claudio Ribeiro, another striker that if you strike with this guy, you've got a very big chance of getting knocked out. And then he took the loss to Joe Pyfer last time. I'm going to go Abdul Razak Alhassan via first round knockout. Interesting to see if this fight goes into 2 and 3. I think you kind of do favour the Brundage side a little bit there, especially if he can get his wrestling going. Alhassan is going to be my pick in this one. -155 is a slight favourite. I don't really like that. If I could get -125, I'd probably be interested, but yeah, I don't think I'll be playing that fight. Christian Rodriguez against Julian Erosa. It seems everywhere I look on this fight, from Carpers out there, prediction videos, that I've kind of seen a couple. There's a lot of love on the Julian Erosa side, and I kind of get it a little bit because he is against a blown up bantamweight in Christian Rodriguez, who's really on a good run of form in the UFC since that loss to Jonathan Pierce, win over Josh Weems, to take much away there. While Rosas, that's only going to age to be a great win. Cameron Simon, good win against a tough South African kid. And then he's got this win over Isaac Bulgarian, where I thought he lost that fight, but it was a close fight. I was a little bit more on the Bulgarian side. I think I probably had money on him as well, actually. But I really like Christian Rodriguez, again, as a really top caliber prospect. I just don't know whether it's going to be at 145. I kind of struggle to see it a little bit. And he's got a massive line here. And you've got a guy in Erosa who, when these odds are beside his name, he comes through in some big spots and cashes some good dog tickets. And he's coming off a really nice win over Ricardo Ramos after losses to Padilla and Alex Caceres, where he got knocked out by both. Now, I don't see Rodriguez really knocking him out, but I think a submission could be in play if he can get advantageous positions on the ground. I've never really been a Juicy J kind of. There's a lot of people out there that really like the guy and will play him every fight because he's usually a dog in most fights. I've never really been on that side, but I think the odds might be a little bit wider than what they are there. It says plus 175. I think he might be closer to plus 200 over here, honestly. Those odds, they're not bad if you think he has a decent chance of not getting clipped, not getting wobbled, not getting hurt, and especially if Christian maybe slows down a little bit, he will pick up the pace in rounds 2 and 3 and will look to land knees, elbows, try and grab submissions. I just think it's an overall talent right now in their careers. 26 against a 34, nearly 35-year-old. I think that Christian has got, especially if he makes his weight, which he should make it relatively easily, make sure he's did so properly. I just think he's a more talented fighter. I think he's got a little bit more wear about him. I think that he's just a little bit a better fighter. So good luck if you're on the Rosa side. I very much doubt I'll get to a play here on Rodriguez, but as a pick, I'm gonna pick him to win this fight. Gabriel Bonfim against Ange Loosa. Somehow I totally forgot about the Ange Loosa in a meltdown. Is that fight with Brian Battle a couple of months back. I don't know how I forgot about that. But he didn't want to fight, and then all of a sudden he wanted to fight. So I don't think it was the greatest look. You've got Bonfim coming off the Dalby loss there where he got knocked out. This guy is a complete front runner, but he is very, very good at doing so, and he's shown that in his couple of UFC fights beforehand, getting stoppages there via submission. I think that he gets another early stoppage here, but this kind of elevation, if he doesn't, and he maybe goes for stuff all out in the first round, he could kind of come a cropper in rounds 2 and 3 a little bit. But I'm not super sold on what I see from Ange Loosa, especially late on. I watched him in Paris against Reese McKee. I bet Reese McKee in that fight. And I think if he was just a little bit more in the fight in rounds 1 or 2, he could have easily got a decision, because that could have been a 10-8 in that third round. He could have got a draw out of it, in my opinion, just watching it live. When I watch it back, I think it was on the cusp of maybe being a 10-8. It could have been a draw. This is a show me fight again for Gabriel Bonfim. Let's see what you're about. Try and see if you can maybe show us a new wrinkle. But I still think he gets it done early, so that's the problem. Heavy favourite you see there, minus 400. I think it's minus 450 over here now. I think that he wins the fight early, so we might not get on that right now, seeing more of him. Dober against Gene Silva. I tried to fade this maniac 2 weeks ago, and I am going to go and try and fade him again. Great win over Charles Jourdain. Really love the berserker style that this guy has. Love the camp that he comes from. I'm just not sold on him jumping up a weight division on less than 2 weeks' notice since his last fight. Will be 2 weeks on the night, against a massive veteran, like a big veteran of the division who's teetering on that top 15 before these kind of losses in the last couple of years. Frivola, he probably did have a number next to his name, like a number 15 type there, and then I lost to Moicano with the win in the middle there against Ricky Glenn. The guy's got a shed ton of knockouts in this division, fought a lot of really good, decent guys. So this is another one here where I'm like, right, 2 weeks notice, less than 2 weeks notice, upper weight class, at elevation. Can I still have the berserker style to really come out here and really hurt a Dober? And I think he can. But for the number that Dober's at, as soon as he hits plus money over here in the UK, if we get it, he will be a bet. I'll still bet it minus 110, honestly. That's where it's at now, and it's been that way for the last 2-3 days. I might just be stupid fading this guy again, because he showed against Jordan that he's got that one punch power to really stop you in your tracks and really put a hurting on you. But for me, I just think that Dober rides out the storm a little bit here, gets the win, could potentially get a late stoppage in rounds 2 or 3, I like Drew Dober this week. He will probably be he will be a bet of mine this week. And let's see if maybe I need to stop throwing money against this Gene Silva, because he's shown that he's a really fun, interesting fighter, a bit of a head case, but fun to watch nonetheless. So I'm going to pick Drew Dober via knockout in this one there. Santiago Ponzinibbio against Muslim Salikhov. Hard to pick this one. Two old guys of the division, 40, 30, nearly a 38-year-old guys have been around for a long time, fighting at elevation. Both guys kind of really at the last probably 10 year of the UFC stint here, with Ponzinibbio coming off that L there, a couple of L's here for Salikhov, Ronnie Brown, and Nicholas Dalby. I think I'm going to lean with Salikhov here. I think as a dog, I think he's a very viable dog this week, but obviously I think he could get chinned with a big shot and really kind of hurt if he doesn't really watch what he's doing. But he's got that style where he really fights at a distance, tries to keep you there, tries to hurt you with his long strikes. But that's really fallen off recently, where he's taken these L's, especially last time out, and it's like 5 months, so it's not even like it's super long ago. But at the age of 40, you really can't be sitting around wasting your time waiting for fights to come to you. And like I said, there was this was it a blood disease that Ponzinibbio had, which really took him out after the kind of wins years ago. It was probably going back to the Glasgow days. I think it was just after that, where he looked like he was in his pomp. He was ready to go for a title shot, and then really just got sidelined by that illness. I don't know if I've got the best read. So when I've not got the best read in a fight, and honestly, I've not really got much of a I don't really want to bet this fight. It's a fight I don't really want to look at a hell of a lot, and I didn't really. So with that, when my thoughts come into it, I'm going to take Salikhov just as a viable dog, I think, this week. I think if he doesn't get chinned, doesn't get hurt, I think that he can remain kind of conscious for 15 minutes, and I think he can just land a little bit more of the overall striking with his kicks. But would it surprise me if he got taken out early? No, it really wouldn't. So Muslim Salikhov for the win there. And the main event of the night, we've got Tracy Cortez stepping in here on a bit of a short notice against Rose Namajunas, where I'm really interested in seeing this fight, because, again, I'm seeing a hell of a lot of love for Tracy Cortez, and I get it. I really do get it. But I'm like, is she really at the caliber of where Rose is right now? But is Rose really at that caliber where she once was? I don't think she is. So, and it's a little bit interesting to see a couple of things, like a training situation. If she was with what's the former coach, Gaethje's coach, Trevor Whitman, if she was still with him, I would be far more confident. But it doesn't look like that is. She's still just doing her thing with Pat Barry, and doesn't look like she's kind of with the Onyx gym that Trevor Whitman's at. Like I say, if she was with him, I would be 100% more confident in a betting line like this here than I would be right now. I think the line is high, but I think it could be justified. She's coming off that win over Amanda Ribas, where Ribas was she was in that fight. She had opportunities to really put herself in that fight, but ultimately Rose just did more through that. And like I said, I thought she fought well against Firo. Firo's a tough girl to face, especially in Paris. Like I say, over a 5-round fight, it would be interesting to see how close that would have been. I think I probably still would have went with Firo, but I'm not sold on Rose in 2024 and where she's at. I mean, she's been around the game for a long time, 32 years old, still young really in MMA terms. But how long has she been in the UFC for? It must be closing in on 10 years, 8 to 10 years probably. Let me see. So that's the Ultimate Fighter. So 10 years, pretty much 10-year anniversary. But she's just not looked all that great recently, in my opinion. This fight is one of the worst ever. I don't know why I bloody sat and watched that again. It was late at night, so I really wasn't as tuned in as I would have been. And then the Firo fight was, like I say, she did all right in that one. I just think her moving to a new division against a girl who's next in line for the title shot she was just beaten by the better fighter there. Tracy Cortez, wrestling, like a wrestling kind of heavy grappler, she will look to use that. I think that's what she needs to do, because I think as an overall striker, I think she's got some decent striking. I just don't think it's enough on the caliber of like a Rose Namajunas, who will throw in kicks, will attack with the leg kicks, but that could show for some takedowns off the Cortez side. And I mean, she's coming off some really solid wins. Egger's a solid win. Quiche, she can be a tough fight. She's very dogged. She will never really kind of fight herself out of a fight. She'll keep herself in there. Gatto's a good win, and then she's got a win over Jasmine Jasudavicius, where she used her grappling there, really got the takedowns and kind of looked to do that. And I think that's what she's going to try and do here. But I just don't see her having large spells of this fight where she's going to be predominantly successful with her grappling. And like, do I see her having long spells on the feet where she is landing at will on a Rose Namajunas? I just don't see. I think Rose is going to just be a little bit more cunning as a fighter, just use that overall top fight experience to kind of win rounds. So ultimately, I'm going to go with Rose Namajunas. I don't like the line she's at, though, and I don't mind if you're taking a shot on Tracy Cortez at those odds if you think she can implement a grappling. I'm just not sure she can do it consistently for 5 rounds. Now, it doesn't mean to say that she can't do it for 3 of the rounds and win a decision, but the gut's kind of just telling me to go in the Rose Namajunas side. But like I say, I'm either going to do really well this week, because I think I have picked a majority of favourites, or I'm going to do really bad, because I still think there's a lot of live dogs. When you look at this fight card, I think that as a dog, I think Cortez has a little bit. I think Salikhov, I think Erosa could be, if he gets into the later part of the fight. Brundage, if he doesn't get nuked, could be an opportunity to win the fight. Johnson, Jasmine, there's a lot of kind of live dogs if you're reigning on that side. I'm kind of more on the favourite side, and recently that's kind of what's been happening. But eventually that's going to turn around and dogs are going to start barking. This might be the card where some of these dogs come through. But for me, I'm going to pick Rose Namajunas in the main event there. So guys, that is my picks for UFC Denver. Boys, Nick, what's happening? I see in the chat there. Until next week, guys, I think we've got like Van Chandarova against Lemos. Not super great. But we've got a fight card, and then we've got UFC 304, which I do think is a really solid pay-per-view. So until then, guys, if you can throw a like on the video, much appreciated if you're still here. Peace. Take care.